A Light Within Darkness Chapter 93, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. There were 6 beings of power sitting at a large raised table to fit the Primarch Roboute Guilliman and his ally in the Archmagos Dominus, Belisarius Cawl, whose inhuman form needed more room than the final, more svelte form of Yvraine, who was elegantly perched on her chair beside Guilliman. On my side of the table were my Aeldari lovers in Ellesmere, and the goddess Isha. With Isha looking at Yvraine with not at all concealed, silent disdain and utter disappointment. There wasn't a grand reception for the 3 as my sex disciples, besides the few Aeldar, had literally no idea what the Imperium even was. So their meeting and giving a warm welcome to Guilliman was a waste of time. So here we were. Finally, though Guilliman broke the silence as he looked straight at me with his wisdom-filled blue eyes that tried to pierce through my body to see the secrets within. He has declared you as his son and wishes for you to rejoin the Imperium of Mankind as is your rightful place, Guilliman stated bluntly, not cutting corners and getting to the heart of the matter. I closed my eyes for a long moment as I processed his words and then equally bluntly spoke. The current Imperium is a cesspool of indulgence, evil, and callous wasting of life. I refuse to share my knowledge to a humanity whose main source of food for the military is the corpses of their fellow race. Guilliman's face actually twitched as I brought a fucking corpse starch of all things, but I continued. Guilliman, I spoke seriously. I am going to help humanity, and if humans I train leave my sect and elevate the Imperium. That's their choice. My only goal and the same goal as all my disciples are the suppression and eradication of chaos so that the equally large threats like tyrannids and orcs can be eradicated, similar to when the Aeldari held the galaxy within their palms. I then continued as I held up my and with a loud crashing noise, one of the armor pieces I kept during the battle with Angron, and everyone stiffened at the sight of the plate as I then said coldly. I have dealt with Angron and survived several gods' wrath at my actions. I have braved Nurgle's realm and stole my wife here for myself. And I just got back from stealing and looting the treasures of Slaanish's realm. I gave all 3 of them a measured look as I very simply said. Do not think you can bully me. Otherwise, I will literally steal everything that isn't and is bolted down. I finished with a wide smile. Instead of being insulted at the blatant threat, Belisarius Cawl spoke frankly through a series of voice modulators in a tone that relayed only interest in something else. I worked tirelessly for many years upon the Primaris Marine project. I must ask, how does refining warp or otherwise spiritual energies allow the human body to transcend its many flaws? He finished while putting clear derision on the whole spiritual energy bit. While sounding somehow utterly fascinated at how cultivation enhanced a baseline human past Astartes level. Even as I pondered how to answer his question, I had an interesting thought. I wanted to know how far could Belisarius Cawl take low-level cultivation golems / puppets with some anti-warp / absorbing seals to power them. How far could this great genius take such a level of things? Either way, I took a breath and finally answered the tall, almost completely machine being honestly. There are many paths to enlightenment, and in just as the case is, there are many techniques to refine the body to give said body many different attributes, frankly. But in either case, spiritual energy is completely different from warp energy, as, instead of the warp's tendency to twist and turn, base spiritual energy's only natural course within the body is to simply energize the surrounding area, and by using a technique, it would drive the energy in a certain direction. My general explanation had only seemingly gotten Cawl's drive for intelligence stoked for more, but before he could continue, attention filled the room as Isha finally spoke, and directly to Yvraine. Who was the emissary of the Inari, which was the faction supporting the rise of the Aeldari god of death, Iniad? If you dare to consider that thought from that god's message anymore, I will kill you where you stand, daughter of Beeltan, Isha said bluntly, and I stiffened and my spiritual energy flared as did Ellesmere's. While Guilliman's armored fists clenched slightly on the table while Cawl went uncannily still. Yvraine visibly closed her eyes and laid her hands flat on the table as she said evenly. It's not often that my God gives me such a direct message, but wouldn't it be worth it? Be worth the death of Slaanish? She questioned softly, and we all looked back at Isha, who coldly snarled. You wish to rip the fetus from my womb and use its divine ichor to welcome your death god into the material realm, and such an act will kill all Aeldari children with the connection of the dead child. No, Yvraine, I would not consider it for but a moment, and speaking another word of it will result in your death. Now, be silent, you worm who delved into Comarak. The ancient Aeldari's face was stone at her dressing gown, but I myself was inches from stabbing the bitch myself as I looked to Guilliman and spoke frankly. This meeting has gone in a very wrong way, Lord of the Ultramarines. You understand that I will not come with you, and others have tried to forcefully recruit me before. But I will give you gifts of power your father can analyze to pick apart that he may share with followers of humanity that believe in him so it cannot be used by forces of chaos. I spoke as I knew a terrible cultivation art that fit this perfectly. Basically, it cultivated a sort of wisp of divine energy which could be housed within the body, and the emperor could naturally set himself as the divine icon for the art, and the people that fought in his name, and believed that he was actually the god emperor, would gain more strength. This cultivation art also works for me as well, as I know the counter spell to literally dispel their divine wisps inside anyone's body with just a handful of hand seals. But even as I used a jade tablet to have a golem retrieve the technique steals of these particular techniques, along with a book on puppets for Cawl, I never let my eyes leave Yvraine's form, and Guilliman loudly sighed, knowing that even his diplomatic talents had been sundered before he could actually get to work. As he actually had a loving family. He knew I was way too worked up to properly speak right now, so he bowed his head in agreement with his voice coming in at a deep tenor. Very well, this meeting was impromptu and without any prior notice, to be fair. Would you be willing to meet in 3 days, just you and I? At my raised eyebrow, he clarified. I wish to speak with you about things, and I wish to hear how you sealed away my wayward sibling. I finally nodded, and the three got up from their chairs, only for me to hand over their gifts to Guilliman and Cawl. While Yvraine's gift was her allowing to leave alive, and I was very blunt with my attitude towards her, even as Guilliman almost awkwardly escorted the still graceful elf out of the meeting hall. Fucking space elves. I cursed under my breath, and I felt Ellesmere and Isha's eyes glare on my back as I palmed my face at this damned meeting.